Now, around the time of the invasion, there were thousands of black students in Ukraine who had to leave. Some of them haven't been able to continue with their courses and don't know when or if they'll ever be able to. To understand more on this, I've got BBC journalist Soraya Ali to break it down for me. Hey, Soraya.
Hey.
So, what is the sitch with people who were studying in Ukraine? Like, have they been able to pick up their studies elsewhere?
I would say, as a simple answer, it's been really difficult for the students. So once they fled Ukraine, as we know, a lot of them fled facing racism, trying to go into neighboring countries in Europe as a first point of call. And then the students really had to decide, do I want to stay in Europe and finish my studies, which is a big decision after you've invested so much time, money, energy.
Yeah.
And others decided to get on repatriation flights and return to Africa. And that's also been a really big challenge. So the ones who decided to go back to Africa, for example, Nigeria, a lot of the students went back to. Last year in July, the Nigerian Medical Council came out and said they're no longer accepting online degrees that have been awarded from Ukrainian universities. And then 2 months later, the Ghanaian Medical Council also said the same thing. So for the students, they started doing it online and then they found out their degrees actually are going to be void. They said, if you complete this online, we're not recognizing the degree. The ones who decided to stay in Europe, a lot of the scholarships have been reserved for Ukrainian nationals only. So universities have actually sent emails to students saying, sorry, this is only for Ukrainian nationals. So for those trying to continue their studies, they're having to face really expensive, high tuition fees, language requirements. They're saying you need to have studied German for 2 years or Polish for 2 years. And on top of that, a really complicated visa process. So yes, some people have managed to get through that process and have been quite lucky. For the majority, it's been a big struggle and they haven't managed.
I know you've mentioned countries like Ghana and Nigeria. Do we know how many people from predominantly black countries were studying in Ukraine at the time?
The government data from 2020, for example, says there were 80,000 international students in general overall, and about a quarter of them were from Africa. So that's a rough figure, but also realistically, by the time the war broke out in 2022, the figure was much higher. And I'd say tens of thousands of students have been impacted from African countries.
Soraya, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast to share that with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, guys.